What's up, everybody? We are back here again. I am Frank. I am joined by Dennis, Outside the Squared Circle, episode 4. Before we get going, I would like to put out a quick disclaimer. So if anything is changed, uh, you know, or is a little bit different in concerns to what we're talking about during this episode, we recorded this the same day that we recorded episode 3. Obviously, we're wearing the same stuff, so we can't fake it here, right? But I'm going to be on vacation the week that we put this out. So we're talking about things that kind of relate as to what's happening in the now. And obviously, things can change in a week. But the episode will still be uploaded. So if we sound like complete idiots, just completely disregard that, chalk it up. But if we sound like geniuses, give us all the credit in the world here. I don't. We're playing both sides of the fence here. Cool. So I think it's only right to start it off with the biggest news of the week of recording this being that the Pacquiao-Thurman fight has been officially announced, pay-per-view, July 20th. Dennis, what are your initial thoughts when you hear that 60-year-old Manny Pacquiao is fighting shoulder injury Keith Thurman? How are we feeling?
One, I like the balls of Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
But I got to say this. I got a lot to say. Look, I think he's ballsy and intelligent. Ballsy because he's fighting, as Floyd would call it, a young, hungry lion. But he's intelligent because he's seen Thurman last fight.
Mm-hmm.
And Thurman didn't look the greatest against Josecito Lopez. He got hurt. He wasn't letting his hands go like one time usually does. So I think Manny see that and said, I'm way better than Josecito Lopez. I let my hands go more than him, even though he's not the man that lets go 8-punch combos and stuff like that, nothing like crazy. He still lets his hands go enough to hit you, hurt you. And with that being said, I think he see that he can beat, in his mind, he can beat Keith Thurman by just outpointing him and outscoring him, because that's what Josecito Lopez attempted to do by coming there and applying a lot of pressure on him and trying to get a stoppage, because that's what he was. Josecito Lopez didn't come to say, guess what? I'm going to outbox Keith Thurman for 12 rounds. He came in there and said, I'm tough, I'm gritty, I'm going to bring the fight to you. And he did a great job of that. So Manny Pacquiao being way levels above Josecito Lopez, figure, I can do that. So I still think it's a ballsy move because, listen, let's just say that Thurman was rusty. Ring rust. Guy hasn't fought in almost 2 years, right? Let's say he got that rust off. And he returns back to the one time that fought Sean Porter that took great shots, tremendous punches, they say, tremendous punches, and was able to return them, and was able to keep coming, and was able to rock Porter, and was able to show a heart of a true warrior. If that Thurman shows up, listen, prediction, he beats Manny Pacquiao. If Thurman is now injury prone, he's not the same from his shoulder surgery, from his elbow surgery, he's still rusty, Manny Pacquiao will get a decision. That's just the short of it.
Yeah, no, and I think I share some pretty similar sentiment, and I do want to say I was kidding when I said old man Pacquiao and hurt Thurman. I think this is a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I will say this, though, on your point that if we get the Thurman that fought Porter or even like Danny Garcia, that Porter outpoints Manny. But if we get the one against Josecito Lopez, I think Manny wins that fight fairly handedly. But I think we're going to get a Thurman in between there. I think we needed one more tune-up fight before he stepped back up on the elite level. Granted, like you said, Manny isn't the Manny of old, but he's still good enough to beat a lot of these guys. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to get a Thurman that's in between those performances. But that's what makes the fight intriguing to me. Because, and this is no knock on Manny, I just think because he's getting a little bit older, we saw him get bullied. Even though I scored the fight for him against Jeff Horn, he got bullied in that fight. Jeff Horn was bigger. He used his bigger frame to really, bully him around the ring and land some decent shots. I think Thurman could have implemented a better game plan than that and beat Manny in an entertaining and even maybe a close fight, had this been the version that fought Porter or fought Danny Garcia. And obviously the one that fights Josecito Lopez, I think he loses. But I think a Thurman that is a little bit in between there really makes this 50-50. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see, is Thurman gonna stay on the back foot like he did against Danny Garcia? Is he gonna try and mix it up, really stay in the middle of the ring like he tried to do against Sean Porter? Does he do a mixture of both? Obviously, I think Manny is who he is at this point. He, ever since being knocked out by Marquez in the fourth fight, he's been that boxer puncher, fight a little bit smarter, but still let my hands go in spurts. So I think we're going to get that same Manny, but I think that version of Manny, can cause a lot of issues to Thurman. I don't have a prediction just yet. This is one of those ones that I feel like my prediction's gonna. It might even be, how do they look on the scales? What am I seeing in training? I mean, there's so many what ifs here because Manny is, I think, 40 or may even be 41 by the time of that fight. You never know how, a fighter of that age is going to perform. And then just like you said, and that I've said, that we don't know what version of Thurman that we're getting. Was he out of the ring a little bit too long? Did the the elbow injury take that much out of him? Does he still have the power in the right hand because of the elbow surgery? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions here. But that being said, this fight's going to answer those questions. I'll throw it back to you, but I did want to say, the same way that we spoke about Jarrett Hurd and Jermell Charlo, kind of, if you want to be the top guys in this weight division, these are the fights you have to win. I mean, if you're talking about Keith Thurman, one time has been calling out fighters forever. He called out, Floyd Mayweather back in like 2013 when obviously he didn't deserve the fight yet. He knew he wasn't going to get it, but he's trying to get his name out there. He's been calling for these big fights forever. So if you want to be the guy at 147, if you want to, take on and feel like you can beat Spence, you have to win this fight.
Thurman's earned this.
I
know
agree.
A lot of people saying, "Oh, we wanted Crawford. That's the fight that they've been calling out for." Listen, that's a great fight. Honestly, I would favor Crawford. I gotta go favor Crawford. But if we're matching resumes and we're putting resumes up there saying who deserves to fight more, Crawford or Thurman, you gotta say Thurman. Thurman has a few more names on there, has more experience at 147. He's been the man there for a while. Crawford is earning his stripes now, especially with a great win against Amir Khan. Now, this is what I say. If Thurman wins the Manny Pacquiao fight, listen, either way, throw it out the window. Whoever wins that fight, I wouldn't be mad if Crawford fought. I wouldn't be mad at Crawford Thurman. I wouldn't be mad at Crawford Manny. Either way, either winner. Because either winner is still a great fight. I think it'd be an even better fight if Thurman wins. If Thurman is the Thurman of old, he wins in a tremendous fashion and comes back, and then you got Thurman versus Crawford. You can put that on pay-per-view. That's now one of those fights that I said, okay, I'll pay-per-view this one. Because I didn't pay for Amir Khan versus Crawford because I didn't think it was worth it. But I'm paying for Thurman versus Crawford if Thurman looks great and beats Manny Pacquiao in tremendous fashion. I'm paying for that because now you got two top elite middleweights that are both legit champions. Let's make that fight. So that's for me. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's a bad take at all. And I'll even further one of your points. Does anyone at the welterweight division have a better welterweight resume than either Manny Pacquiao or Keith Thurman? I think the answer is a resounding no, right? You look at some of these guys, I think, Danny Garcia doesn't have a great win at 147. Sean Porter doesn't really have a great win at 147.
Who is his biggest win? Let me ask you that. Who do you think is Sean Porter's biggest win?
The very first name that came to my mind, and it was the one that really put him on the map, was the Devin Alexander win. Yeah, because Alexander had the belt. I mean, and from what I remember, maybe my memory serves me incorrect, but Devin Alexander was favored to win that fight. Everyone thought he was going to outbox Sean Porter because Sean Porter had the football background. He's a rough, rugged guy, kind of raw at the time, and he went and dominated that fight. So I still count that as a good win for him. I mean, he didn't beat Ugas very convincingly. He lost. He lost to Keith Thurman. He fought Danny Garcia in a fight that I did think he won, but I know a lot. I mean, it was pretty 50-50 on message board, so that's a good win. But in terms of like a defining win, he doesn't have that just yet. And I feel like even though they were close wins for Keith Thurman, he beat Sean Porter and he beat Danny Garcia in a fight that everyone pretty much thought he won, even though they were close. To me, that's more defining than what other guys have done at 147. And then when you're talking about Manny, Manny has the best resume. Him and Canelo probably have the two best resumes in boxing right now. So he's a veteran. He's been doing this for 40 years now. So you can't take anything away from Manny. So I think you're gonna get the people who are too cool for everything. It's a bad fight. I'd rather have so and so. We get it. There's always the boxing hipsters that want the dude who has 12 fights that just came out of the amateurs to fight someone. You get those guys, but like outside of them, I can't imagine there being too much complaining about Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao.
It shouldn't be.
No, I agree. I think staying in the same division, your boy Sergey Lipinets has called out Danny Garcia, and we were just asking in episode, I believe 2, who the hell's Danny gonna fight next? Who is kind of the gatekeeper? Who is someone that can keep him busy? This might be it. What do you think?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you who, and I got a little bit of spill on this. I think ever since I seen this face-off, I wanted this fight. When Danny Garcia and Adrian Broner did the little playful face-off, and they both alluded to the fact that they say, "Hey, this fight could happen in the future." Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The future is here. It is now. And I'm gonna. This is my spiel. I really only want to see Adrian Broner fight 3 people. I don't care if he fights anybody else. Let's start at 147. He already lost to Porter. Do you think he can do anything better to win that fight? No, not from what I've seen. Can he beat Spence? No. Can he beat Thurman? No. Can he? He already proved he can't beat Manny. So that's fight at 147 for him. Who was that lead? Danny. Let's say he goes to 140. Who is the only name fighter that has a chance or would be worth seeing? Sorry, Regis Porkray. So if somehow he could make 135, we all know who we want to see there. Lomachenko. There's only 3 fights in existence for me. Those are the 3 fights that I would want to see him fight. If he can't take one of those fights, I'm really not interested in seeing Adrian Broner fight. Gotta be honest. I know what I'm gonna get. I watch fights because we don't know. I watch fights because the excitement of you just never know what happens in boxing. But Adrian Broner has been pretty consistent, just being.
We know.
Yeah, we know what's gonna happen. He's been pretty consistent on let us know. We know what's gonna happen. He's gonna get out work. He's gonna talk crazy in a post fight, and he's gonna say, "Y'all still gonna come see me," and somehow we still come and see him.
Yeah.
So
no, and
go ahead.
It's funny because I feel like that fight at the time of PBC's inception was kind of looked at as one of the big fights at 147. Or was Danny still at 140 at the time when PBC first came about?
Yeah,
so either 140. So either 140 or 147, right? And like to see where that fight is now in terms of talking about a hypothetical matchup, it's kind of sad to see how far Adrian Broner has fallen. And just like you said, those 3 fights I wouldn't mind simply because I do think Broner, he has one more cash out fight and then he should retire. I don't want to get into the point where we're building him up again. And by we, I just mean the boxing world. Oh, he got a good win against a top 15 guy, and then he got a good win against a top 8 guy because he can beat those guys. He can beat the top 20, the top 15. But when he steps back up to the elite level, it's going to be the same thing. So let's just get right to it. Let's see if he can't pull something out. Because at that point, you're playing with house money. If you lose, you got another payday. You can either go away or do the Amir Khan thing and just kind of keep sticking around for another big fight. Or if you win one of those fights, now you really build up the next fight for you.
Exactly. Let's say if he was to beat Danny Garcia. Now it's like, okay, maybe let's go to the Porter rematch. Maybe he's turned into something. You know what I mean? But there's no need to let him fight Joe Smo Blow and then say let's fight Danny Garcia. Fight Danny Garcia now.
No, I'm not mad at the take. So I want to run down a list. We had the show notes beforehand. So I want to do let's rank who we would like to see Danny Garcia fight next of this list, if this is what they're kind of sitting down at the table looking at. We'll throw Sergey Lipinets in there and Adrian Broner as well, because that wasn't on the original list. So of Devin Alexander, Luis Collazo, Amir Khan, Victor Ortiz, Ugas, Jesse Vargas. Well, I guess that's a ton. We can eliminate a couple as we go. Josecito Lopez, Sergey Lipinets, Adrian Broner. So obviously Broner's number one for you. We'll go with that. Who would be number two if, say, Broner says, nah, I don't want that fight?
Who would be number two for me?
Yeah. I think mine would be Josecito Lopez.
I can sure. I can see that. Why not? I would make him number two, but I would closely followed by Devin Alexander, just because of namesake.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I changed my mind on all of this. We're forgetting someone that I think is probably a shoo-in for the next fight.
Who?
We got a guy who shouldn't be at 147, but a pound-for-pound guy nonetheless, who really wants a title at 147. And I think Mikey Garcia and Danny Garcia may fight by the year's end.
Think so?
I think so, because...
You think he's going to stay there?
I would advise him to do so. But from everything, he already vacated at 135. He said his next fight's either going to be at 140 or 147. They're just kind of looking at the names. But that being said, me and you have talked about this back before we started up with the podcast. Who was the one guy we could see Mikey beating at 147? Because I didn't see him beating Spence. I didn't see him beating Thurman, Porter. He's just too physically small for those guys. But the one guy I could see him beating,
we said that, was
Danny Garcia. And there's no knock to Danny. He just, to me, is not a natural welterweight. He's not that big of a dude. Granted, he'd still be bigger than Mikey, but we've seen Mikey beat guys bigger than him. We've seen him beat Robert Easter. We've seen him beat Sergey Lipinets, who was bigger than him. So, and I think stylistically you would favor Mikey in that fight. I think that's going to happen next. It just popped in my head. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a fresh. Okay. I wasn't thinking him, because I was thinking he was gonna move back down and reign at 140, win some titles, and then they were gonna bump heads, and then I wouldn't mind seeing that, because after Danny fight looking good against Granados, I'm not gonna say that I favor him to win, but he could win. He could beat Mikey. He could catch Mikey, hurt Mikey, earn his respect, get him off of him, because Mikey's really skilled. I really expect Mikey, if that fight would have happened, to Mikey to just outbox Danny and outpoint him, because he's so skilled. But yeah. Danny could definitely win that fight, just as equal. I think, you know what? I'll go to say it's a 50-50 fight.
I agree.
I say it's a 50-50 fight, and I'm not mad at that at all. I wouldn't mind seeing it.
I wouldn't either. And I think the reason that Spence was able to dominate Mikey the way he did was because he was the bigger guy, but he used his size much differently than everyone else thought he would. Everyone thought he was going to come, bull rush, bully him, but he used his length. He boxed on the outside. He worked the body throughout the fight and just let his natural power at 147 do its thing to Mikey. And that's not to me saying that he wouldn't have won that fight if they were the same size. Who knows? But he just used his size differently. I can't imagine a scenario in which Danny could use the size advantage that he has against Mikey, and that's what makes it a 50-50 fight. Because now we're talking about probably a fight in the middle of the ring with Mikey moving a little bit more, just because Danny can't really cut off a ring, and in that scenario, it makes for a very interesting fight.
Yeah, it does. All right, that's a fight I would have to sit down a little bit more, really look at, because I got to fit, like, just off the top of my head, I say it's a 50-50 fight. But, you know, I always come with a different perspective when I sit down, look at it a little bit more, and really analyze it.
I agree. You know, after running down that list of names of all the guys that we're talking about with Danny, I want, so you know how there's the World Boxing Super Series? I want the, like, Super Series of guys who need to retire, especially at 147. I mean, you have, like, Luis Collazo, you have, maybe not Josecito Lopez. He may have a little bit left in the tank here after how he looked against Keith Thurman. But maybe even a guy like Andre Berto, throw him in there.
Yeah.
And then, like, as they keep going on, you're going to have the top guys. Obviously, Pacquiao-Thurman are fighting. Obviously, Spence and Porter are fighting. So they're going to meet at some point. But, like, and I hate this sounds bad and even disrespectful, so I don't mean it like this, but just to kind of give a visual for people who were listening, kind of that losers bracket that's going, the winner of that faces the winner of the guys who are whoever's crowned like the top at 147, just as a way to get somewhat of a soft touch, but then also get someone in there that earned that fight against, you know, the guy who's deemed number one. I think that could be a really cool idea. I think you would have to market it better than what I did, because that would sound awful. Like, yeah, this is the losers bracket here, and they're gonna fight, you know, Spence after he beats everybody, and it's like that won't market well. But I think there's a way you can market that to really, you know, do some good numbers.
I would tune in for that, because you get a chance to see who's got enough to compete with the young guns, and who needs to go home and sit on the couch.
I agree. I think you get Devin Alexander. I think you get Luis Collazo. Throw Amir Khan in there. Victor Ortiz. Maybe not Jesse. But Jesse Vargas might fuck around and win that whole thing if he was in that tournament. That would be fun. That would be. Oh, you know what's something we didn't touch on either. And guys, if this sounds like we're rambling, like I said, we recorded this the same day as episode 3, so we're just kind of throwing something out there so we can have something for you guys. Have you seen someone fall from grace? Well, not even fall from grace, but like have the weird trajectory, like this roller coaster trajectory that Saddam Ali had. Did you see his last fight?
No, I didn't even see it. I heard about it.
He got knocked out, I think, in the second or third round. And I feel
he's a roller coaster. He's up, then he's down, then he's up, then he's down.
And I feel awful for him, because he was hyped, and I don't think he was the favorite against Jesse Vargas when he fought him, but I think the odds were very close. Obviously, got knocked out in that fight. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he beats Miguel Cotto. Granted, a Cotto that obviously wasn't in his prime, but he certainly wasn't favored to win that fight. And then he feels like he should stick around that 154. And, I mean, we all kind of knew any natural 154 pounder was going to get him, because he's a small dude.
I figured he was going to just like, okay, I did this for the opportunity, and I'm going to go back down.
I agree, and that's exactly what he should have done. Obviously loses to Jaime Munguia. That kind of started the Munguia hype moving forward with that. But yeah, and then he went back down to 147. I'm not sure if he had a fight before this one, but I did check that out. It was a couple of weeks ago. He was on the undercard of I don't remember. Was that the Canelo Jacobs? I think it was the Canelo Jacobs fight he was on the undercard of, and he didn't look very good. So I hope I'd like to see him retire. But he was a guy that I thought could be in that mix of like gatekeeper or just kind of above average guys who can keep a prospect on their toes, but I don't think that's the case at all anymore.
Wow. You know what I want to talk about? Bringing up a topic. um, Zordo,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Gilberto
That's right.
Ramirez vacated his title to focus on 175. And with that being said, Billy Joe Saunders, he's fighting Shafet Usufu at 168 because he decided he can no longer make 160. And right away, he gets to fight for the title that Zerdo vacated. I want to know, like, how good is your promoter and who does he have a relationship with that they go, you know what, you never fought here before, but I think I'm going to let you fight for this title just because I like you. Like, how does that go? Like, you don't get to earn those stripes. You don't got to prove that you're a real 168 pounder. You don't got to fight anybody that's ranked really high there, or like you just move up there and fight for the title. Like, I want to know how do you feel about that?
Personally, I'm not a fan of it at all, especially when you see where Billy Joe is at this point in his career. He was slated to fight Boo Boo Andrade, which I thought would have been an excellent fight, and then he gets popped for PEDs, and I just feel like you're rewarding someone for nothing at this point, especially moving up a division in which he's done nothing in. When you look at his resume, he has some solid wins. Gary O'Sullivan was a solid win. John Ryder is a solid win. Eubank Jr. is a solid win. Andy Lee is an okay win. I remember thinking he could have looked a lot better against Andy Lee. Willie Monroe, but then the one that really put him on the map was the David Lemieux win. I think a lot of people going into that fight knew that Billy Joe was the better fighter or the better boxer, but we all thought that, if Lemieux lands one shot, he can put him to sleep, just like he does there. I mean, he has that type of NyQuil power, and he didn't get hit with anything. So, like, he got to this peak of, like, man, Billy Joe might really be a player at 160, and then he gets popped for steroids, and now it's like, oh, let me just wilts to 160 and get a title, or 168, I'm sorry, and get a title fight. And it's like, what are we really doing here? That was the WBA, right?
That's the WBO.
WBO, I'm sorry.
Because he's had the WBO title, because he was WBO title at 160, maybe he's built some type of relationship with them that they say, hey, we'll let you fight for our title again at 168. But that's still unfair to the guys. That's like, because I know there's got to be a gang of guys at 168 that's like, you know what? I want, like, that's been trying to fight, that's been trying to get their hands on that title, that hasn't got that shot. They got to be like, this is unfair. Like, those guys, I know they got to be upset about that.
I agree. You look at this list. I don't think it's necessarily a list of killers, but it's guys that deserve it over him at 168. Obviously, Gilberto moved up. You guys like George Groves still at 168. Anthony Durrell, Callum Smith, who could be a belt collector there. Maybe that's what they're setting up. That could be pretty big in Britain. I mean, me and you, before we hopped down, we did talk about, what is the play here? Because I think a lot of times boxing, and even we do it, and I think we may even be doing it now, which isn't me justifying what's happening, but we do kind of take a short-term look at stuff. Are they setting up a Callum Smith fight? Are they setting up a Eubank Jr. rematch? Hell, are they setting up a Canelo fight? The rumors have been there. He wants to maybe move back up to 168. He wants to, collect some belts, some more belts up there. Who really knows? But that being said, I wish that sanctioning bodies and promoters would be a little bit more, upfront about certain stuff like that. That way we're not left wondering, and we're not sitting here ranting like we are now. Like, what has he done at 168 to deserve this? Because granted, I still think I would have my complaints with it, but then I would understand it. As a sanctioning body, you want to put on the biggest fights for your belts. And realistically, Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo, two Irishmen going in there, that's a big fight, I think. I think that's a pretty big fight to make, and I wouldn't be mad at it as much if that's what the play actually was.
Right. That will make a lot of sense in the scheme of things to understand why things are going the way they're going.
Yeah. No, I agree. I want to quickly look at the 175-pound division and see. I mean, Gilberto was a big 168-pound fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he goes up there and he's immediately top 3?
He's top 5.
Fair. I want to look and see. Obviously, you have Sergey Kovalev. You have
What's the
here we
kid
are.
that Kovalev just Alvarez? Elder Alvarez.
And later Alvarez. You have Dmitry Bivol is up there, obviously, but he may be moving down to 168. You have Sullivan Barrera, who I don't know.
Yeah.
Looking at this,
Badu
Alexander
Jack.
Vosdick, the dude who beat Badu Jack, is up there, even though he hasn't looked too great. I think I might favor Gilberto in that fight. I'm looking at this list, bro. He might be top 3. I think Sergey is probably number 1. Vosdick, the guy who beat Adonis Stevenson, is probably number 2. After that, I see.
Oh, we're missing one guy. Like
Marcus Brown is up there. Is that
Marcus? But what's this guy? What's the guy named? The other cat? Is he Russian? The guy the IBF champion. I forget his name.
Is it Dimitri? Is it Bivol?
Arthur better be.
Oh yeah, Arthur Beterbiev. Yep. Yeah, that's another one.
Beterbiev. Yeah, because I said he's the IBF champion.
Yeah, and but realistically, here's the thing: I've never been high on Beterbiev. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've never been super high on him. You're much higher on him than I am. But the two, I think, just on paper, the only two guys to this point I would favor over Gilberto at 175 would be Sergey Kovalev and Alexander Vosdick. Maybe Sullivan Barrera. I'm sorry. Maybe a later Alvarez, but I like Gilberto's chances. Maybe Beterbiev. I think he has. I'm interested to see who they put him in there against, because I think he has a solid chance.
He does.
In that division. I'm also curious, now that we're there, I'm curious what Bivol is going to do. And I found it really, really strange that people they thought and they still think that he would just steamroll over Sergey Kovalev. And from what I can see on message boards and whatnot, that he would beat Vosdick pretty easily. And I don't see it. Not saying I don't see him winning the fight. I don't see it being easy. He's very small for 175. He looks tiny in there against guys who aren't that big at 175. And you're talking about Alexander Vosdick, who's very big at 175. And obviously so is Sergey Kovalev is huge at 175. And granted, I think Bivol's probably a little bit more complete boxer than the both of them, but size matters the more you jump up in weight. And if I was Bivol, I think I would go down to 168 and dominate that division, because I think in terms of longevity, you're going to get more out of yourself in that division. What do you think?
I'm sorry. Car was passing by. That was super loud.
No, you're good.
I think he should fit in well. I think he's not, as you were saying, he's not a big fighter, but I think he should fit in. I think he should fit in well up there. What I'm anxious to see is who shakes out there at 175. Who is the most elite fighter? And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna make a prediction. Y'all can hold me to this. I think, because I've been hounding him, I just think Beterbiev is gonna be the guy that's gonna.
Damn. If he is, you called it first.
I'm calling it. I think he's gonna be the guy that's gonna shake out. That's gonna have all the titles. It's gonna be the elite guy that's gonna stand above a king at 175. That's just my prediction. Out of all those guys, I'm gonna put it all on his shoulders and say that, because I just see in him. I see. Granted, I don't know if it's his promotion, because they haven't been making the fights that I think he should be getting, the big name fights. But I think if his promotion is able to get him those fights, I think we see who he is that I see in him.
No, you could be right. You could definitely be right. He he hasn't fought and I feel there was a specific time, especially when we weren't podcasting, where I was a little bit out of the loop on certain things. But looking at his box rec, he only has 4 fights over the last couple of years. He fought once in 2017.
Yeah.
He fought once in 2018, and he's only fought once so far this year, a week or so ago. And I didn't even know he fought. The fuck? Why didn't he? Was he on days? And I was a little unaware of that. I do want to keep up with him to see where he does go, but I'm surprised to your point that he hasn't had bigger fights yet, because he was on PBC and he was being hyped to be this big fighter. That was going to get some of these fights. Granted, they didn't have a big stable at 175, but I just think now he's 34 years old. It's like it's now or never. You're going to start getting in there with.
That's why I'm putting on him. I think they got to give him those fights, and he's not going to peak anymore. He's not going to get any better than he already is.
Right.
I think that he is who I hope he is.
Yeah, no, I like I said, if he is, you definitely called it first. You've been much higher than him than I have been over the years. I did see him live when Arislandi Lara fought in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And Beterbiev was on the undercard, and I'll tell you this, he hits hard. When you hear his shots, they are just thudding. I forgot who he fought. It wasn't anyone really of note, but Jesus Christ, I can only imagine getting hit with some of those shots that he throws. Because you, especially in person, like Arislandi Lara is an example. He doesn't hit the hardest, but he still has solid power. They sound like snaps. They sound just like when you hear, like when Beterbiev, his punches land, it just sounds like a thud, just a doom. And you can hear, like, I remember distinctly, he landed a body shot, and you could hear, because the tickets weren't very expensive. PBC was very early in its inception, so they were, like, giving out free tickets. Granted, I bought mine, but they let us move a little bit closer to the fight. And you could hear when he got hit in the stomach, his opponent, he was like, oh, like he would make these noises. And it was just like, man, that does not sound pretty. So, no, I don't think he's a bad fighter. I just think stylistically with the elite guys at 175, I certainly wouldn't favor him, but I want to see him in there against him.
For sure.
Yeah, I think hey, we made it about 40 minutes here with not very much to talk about, so I'm pretty satisfied with this episode. I mean, did you want to touch on anything else before we get out here? Obviously, we're not privy to the news that's going to be happening the week that we're dropping this, so we'll try to touch on that on the next episode after that. So like I said, guys, don't kill us if there's like some huge announcement. You guys are like, how could you not talk about, Spence moved up to fight Canelo? How didn't you? To like, right. we didn't know yet, bro. Like we're my bad.
But yeah, no, I think I'm pretty satisfied with that. I think we gave you the best content we can give for the now, than trying to think ahead for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, awesome. This was episode 4 of Outside the Squared Circle. Again, we're here. We're consistent. We're raring to go. We want to record as close to fights as possible. We have a pretty good schedule in June. I feel like I just wrote that down. Before we go, we can get a quick rundown of some fights to give people a preview as to what we'll be talking about next month. But I know we have some good ones in June. I was just looking at the schedule. We got Davin Alexander, our boy, coming back. That's a solid fight. I saw him fight Ivan Redkach. I forget. Zab Judah making his comeback against. Oh Jesus, he's fighting Cletus Selden. Do you remember Cletus Selden, the Jewish Hammer? HBO did this big thing and tried to big him up, and then he got his ass kicked against like a C-level guy. That's gonna be a fun fight. Josh Warrington fights, which should be solid. Obviously, Tyson Fury's making the comeback, and this is just me glancing. Jermell Charlo, Tony Harrison, that may be the biggest fight of June. And then Bubu Andrade fights against Sulecki, which should be a good fight. Oh, Jamal fights as well. Yeah, we got some good fights. Looking forward to it. So that's going to be, what's to come over the next couple of weeks, is predictions, thoughts, and stuff like that. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, we definitely appreciate you. You can catch us on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. They will be uploaded. We don't have a set day just yet. We try to record as soon as our schedules allow. So bear with us that way. But as long as you're subscribed to one of those, if not all of those, you'll know when we drop. So we're going to be consistent every single week. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I want to put another emphasis on, rest in peace to Harold Letterman. We lost an iconic voice in boxing. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Peace.